Let's read Genesis 2. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. So in the last chapter, it talks about how God created everything, the earth and the animals and the people, and everything has already been created in 6 days. But on the seventh day, God rests because he calls the seventh day holy, because it's the day that now he's completed everything and he just rests the entire day. So later on in the Bible, we will learn in the Ten Commandments that resting on the Sabbath day or the seventh day is in the Ten Commandments. So this is something that God wanted to show us. And I find it very interesting because this is in the Ten Commandments, even though it's only in Genesis 2. And I think that God would probably not have to rest. He could probably, God can do anything. So it's not necessary for God to rest if he wouldn't have chosen that. God has all the power. But even an all-powerful God like the Lord still wants to show us that resting on the seventh day is important. And everything has already been created in these 6 days, but God still wants to show us on the seventh day was the day for resting. Here is the story of Adam and Eve. This is the account of the heavens and the earth when they were created, when the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. Now no shrub had yet appeared on the earth, and no plant had yet sprung up. For the Lord God had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no one to work the ground. But streams came up from the earth and watered the whole surface of the ground. Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. So even though God said that he made mankind in his own image on the 6th day, male and female, it says at this point that there had been no person to work the ground. So I'm not exactly sure if this is God speaking on the 7th day or what exactly is going on, but we know at this point Adam and Eve are not on the ground. They don't live yet. So God is just talking about how no shrub had yet appeared on the earth, and no plant had yet sprung up, and God had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no one to work the ground. So now we're going to read a little bit more about Adam and Eve and how God created them. And we already read that God formed this man from the dust and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. So this is the first human ever that God is creating, and we get to learn about it in the Bible. Now the Lord God had planted a garden in the east, in Eden, and there he put the man he had formed. The Lord God made all kinds of trees grow out of the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. In the middle of the garden were the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. A river watering the garden flowed from Eden. From there it was separated into 4 headwaters. The name of the first is the Pishon. It winds through the entire land of Havilah, where there is gold. The gold of that land is good. Aromatic resin and onyx are also there. The name of the second river is the Gihon. It winds through the entire land of Cush. The name of the third river is the Tigris. It runs along the east side of Asher. The fourth river is Euphrates. This is talking about how God planted a garden in the east, in Eden, and there he put the man he had formed. We know that in Eden, the Garden of Eden is where Adam and Eve lived. And I'm not exactly sure if this is the 6th day or the 7th day, but this would have to be the 6th day, I would think, because God rested on the 7th day. So it seems like we're going back a little bit and talking about the 6th day, maybe. And also in Genesis 1, where we talk about the 6th day, it does talk about on one of those days, God had created plants and the seeds and the fruits and stuff. But now it says God had created all types of trees. So I'm not exactly sure. I think this would be maybe the 6th day, but I don't know. This probably isn't the 7th day because God rested on the 7th day. But all we know is this probably takes place around somewhere in the 6th day. And we know this is when this is right after God had created Adam, maybe, because he placed him in the Garden of Eden. And then it goes on to talk about the rivers that water the garden in Eden, and they're in 4 headwaters. So it just talks about the different names of these. Like the name of the first is Pishon, and it's in Havilah, and it just talks about these 4 headwaters in Eden, and some of the stuff doesn't make as much sense maybe to someone living today. Like it says something about aromatic resin, and I don't even know what that means, but it's just talking about the different rivers in Eden, or the headwaters of the river. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. And the Lord God commanded the man, "You are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die." The Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." So earlier it talks about how there had not been any rain on the earth and there was no man to work the ground. And now we see this is the first man ever, and he is put in the Garden of Eden to work and take care of the ground in the garden. And the Lord tells this man that he can eat from any of the trees, because we know that God just made all types of trees. And he tells the man he can eat from any tree except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And when he eats from it, he will certainly die. So this is interesting too, because I think that, I know that after this, Adam does not die instantly. He lives 900 years, something like that. He lives a really long life, longer than anyone would live today. But I think, and I could be wrong, but I think that when God says this, he was actually telling Adam that, maybe before this sin got brought into the world, death was never supposed to even be a part of living. You were not supposed to die. But because sin gets brought into the world, maybe what God is saying is that you will not instantly die when you eat from the fruit of the tree, but now death will exist and you will die one day. Then after God puts this man he formed and put him in the Garden of Eden, he says that this man needs someone else because he's alone, and it's not good for him to be alone. And even though there's all these other animals, God is saying to Adam, "I'm going to make a helper suitable for you because it's not good for him to be alone, and he needs some type of helper." Now the Lord God had formed out of the ground all the wild animals and all the birds in the sky. He brought them to the man to see what he would name them, and whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. So the man gave names to all the livestock, the birds in the sky, and all the wild animals. So at this point, God has not even created the woman yet, and he sees that Adam, and I'm not even sure if his name is Adam yet, but this is the only man and only human that God has created. And he sees that he's alone, and it's not good for him to be alone. He needs some kind of helper. So God brings all these animals to him, but these animals don't even have names yet. So this man gives every single animal its own name, and whatever he names them, that's what God calls them. But it says, "But for Adam, no suitable helper was found. So the Lord God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep. And while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs and then closed up the place with flesh. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man." So because God sees it's not good for this man to be alone, he brings every animal to him, and he sees that these are not helpers that are suitable for the man. He needs something else. So God causes Adam to fall into a deep sleep and makes the woman out of one of Adam's ribs. And I think it makes a lot of sense that God did this, because if you think about it, he could have breathed the breath of life from the dust and did the same thing with the woman, and he could have just made the woman how he made the man. But instead, he wanted them to be connected, and he made the woman literally out of the man, from the man's rib. So the woman and the man are connected and both need each other, because the man needed a helper and the woman was made from the man. So it's great because God made the woman in a way that she wasn't made on her own, and the man wasn't made separately from the woman. They were made together. After he does this and makes this woman from Adam's rib, he brings the woman to Adam finally. The man said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man. This is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh." Now that God has brought this woman to Adam, and he sees that this woman was made from his ribs, bone of his bones, he loves her, and he is told that this is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh, because men and women are made for each other, not to be against each other, but for each other. And at this point, there was no sin in the world. There was nothing wrong with the world. So being naked, there was no shame that they felt. Thank you so much if you watched this far. And anyone who's watched this video, I just want to say thank you so much. And yeah, this is a wonderful story. That's why I wanted to do this, where I read the Bible, because I used to post little verses from the Bible and I wasn't really posting consistently, so I wasn't posting too much anymore, and I just felt like the best way to read the Bible was from start to finish. So this has been Genesis 2. Thank you so much for watching.